from 5 years to 10 years of legal residency before you're eligible to apply for Portuguese citizenship. That's the choice that Portugal just made. And whether you're planning to build your entire life here, or you simply want the security and the flexibility that comes with having citizenship rather than permanent residency, this decision will affect your timeline. On October 28th, Parliament voted to extend the residency requirement to 10 years. And depending on where you are in your journey, you're either grandfathered in and safe, racing against the clock, or you may want to rethink your plans completely. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which category you're in and exactly what you should be doing next. So let me break down what actually happened. So on October 28th, 2025, just 2 days ago at the time of this video, the Portuguese Parliament voted to approve a proposal with new residency requirements. The biggest one is 10 years for most applicants, up from 5, and 7 years for EU citizens and Community of Portuguese-speaking countries nationals. And the critical change here as well is that the residence period now counts from your first residency card and the date on it, not your application date, which means longer waiting times before you're even eligible to apply. And a critical caveat is that the President of Portugal must still decide. He can either approve as it is, or he can send it to the Constitutional Court for further analysis. And this might happen because several elements have been said to be unconstitutional, even by the father of the Portuguese constitution itself. But if it's approved, then this will be published in the Diário da República newspaper, effective the same day. And the president has a timeline of 8 days to decide. And if he sends it to the Constitutional Court, then it's typically a timeline of 25 days for them to decide on their ruling. So as you can see, time is really of the essence at the moment. So before we get into the different categories, let's talk briefly about why this is so important. So why does citizenship matter more than permanent residency? Well, permanent residency has limitations. For starters, you're locked only to Portugal, and you can lose your rights if you spend too much time outside the country. You have limited political rights, you can't vote, and it's actually renewable, so it's not permanent in practice. Citizenship, on the other hand, gives you full freedom of movement across all 27 EU member states. You have the right to live and work anywhere in the EU. You have voting rights in Portugal and EU Parliament elections. It cannot be revoked, and you get a Portuguese passport and consular protection worldwide. Complete security in your adopted home. I know this very well because I lost my EU citizenship through Brexit, so I know the difference firsthand and what each one is like. And I wanted to debunk an argument that I'm seeing quite a lot online at the moment. Some people are claiming that Portugal is moving to 10 years to align better with other EU countries. And this is incorrect because 5 years actually remains the most common residency requirement across the EU. Countries with 5-year timelines currently include Belgium, France, Malta, Ireland, Luxembourg, Sweden, and the Netherlands, and a couple of others that I can't remember at this point. So Portugal is not really aligning with the norm, but it's becoming an outlier. And this decision is going to make Portugal one of the slower citizenship pathways in Europe. So the first scenario is that you've already submitted your citizenship application after 5 years. The status here is you're safe, 99% certain you'll be processed under the old rules. You don't need to take any action, and you can just continue waiting for your application to be processed as normal, although I do recommend logging in with the tracking code and checking it from time to time to make sure you're not missing any documents. Now, the second scenario is completing 5 years but haven't applied yet. This is urgent. The critical window is closing very fast, and you need to apply immediately if you're in a position to do so. And to count your 5 years, you can start from the date of your first residency card, so it'll be printed on the card itself, or from the date on your EU certificate if you came here as an EU citizen. And if you have A2 Portuguese proof already, like the CIPL exam or a certificate from a language school that's recognised by the government, then you're in a good position to start your application now. The main other requirement that can sometimes be tricky is getting criminal record certificates from your home country and anywhere else that you've lived, and your birth certificate, which needs to be apostille. But I do have a video about my recent citizenship application experience, which you can check out, which gives a detailed step-by-step of the process. But if you don't have the A2 proof yet, then this is going to be your biggest blocker because exam slots are notoriously difficult to secure. And we're now in October, and it's going to be really hard to get one before the end of the year. Even intensive courses need a minimum of 3 months to get through the course. So you might want to wait and see what the president decides, or you might just want to dive in anyway and start the language certification process. But keep in mind that it's going to be almost impossible to get that sorted before the president makes his decision, and possibly even before it goes through the Constitutional Court. So again, this is quite a big blocker, the A2 language exam proof. Now, the third scenario is that you're currently a resident in Portugal on temporary residency, but you've been here less than 5 years. Now, your status is currently uncertain, and this affects all residency types, including the D7, D8, Golden Visa, and several other pathways. Everything for you now depends on the president's decision. If he approves the proposal as it is, then you should be affected, unfortunately, by the 10-year timeline, unless you're an EU citizen or from the Portuguese-speaking community. If it's sent to the Constitutional Court, then they may include a grandfathering clause for existing residents, but this is purely hypothetical, although it's what I think and many others think they should do. So the recommendation is to plan for the worst-case scenario of 10 years. Do not make life decisions based on a hope of grandfathering, because this is still extremely hypothetical. And the fourth scenario is for people who are still considering moving to Portugal but haven't done so yet. I advise that you recalibrate your expectations if you haven't started yet. If second citizenship is your goal, come in prepared for a 10-year timeline instead of 5. And ask yourself the question, is this acceptable for my goals and life plans? And sure, if you see yourself in Portugal for the long term anyway, then it's still a great choice, and I recommend that you go ahead with it. But in terms of residency visas, I suggest going for D7 with passive income or D8 for digital nomad if you want to be a full-time resident, depending on your circumstances and income. And I no longer recommend the Golden Visa for anyone who wants to live in Portugal full-time. It's just too big an investment to risk when there's such uncertainty in the political environment. So if EU citizenship is your priority, then Portugal is no longer the best option. There are several other pathways that could be a better fit, including Cyprus, Luxembourg, and France. And I'm currently researching these, and in an upcoming video, I will compare some of the alternatives to Portugal if EU citizenship is your goal. But again, if you want to live in Portugal for its own sake, and that is still an excellent decision, then you won't be as affected or as sensitive to these changes. But this proposal is not just about extending the timeline, although for many people that is the most important part. But the entire citizenship process is becoming more restricted, and this is affecting multiple residency pathways, which are either being changed significantly or even eliminated altogether. So who else is affected? Well, first of all, children born in Portugal now must have at least one parent with 5 years of legal residency, and this was previously easier and shorter. Citizenship through marriage is now calling for added background and security checks and adding more bureaucracy to the process. Grandchildren of Portuguese citizens now need to demonstrate sufficient language and cultural knowledge, which was not required in the past. And lastly, the Sephardic Jewish route is formally ending once this law is published. So if you're in the process for that, it's still very unclear how you'll be treated, and I recommend speaking to a lawyer to find out. So the new requirements for all applicants, well, first off, cultural and language knowledge is going to be increased. So as far as we know, it's still the A2 Portuguese level, proven by the CPLP exam or equivalent government-approved language course. But they're also adding in knowledge of Portuguese culture, history, and civic values. And this is likely going to involve some kind of test or evaluation. And probably because A2 is not really a very high level, they may have to increase the requirement to B1 or even B2 for somebody to be able to pass a culture, history, and civic values exam. So expect something like that to happen. Other rules include disqualification from citizenship eligibility if you have an offence punishable by over 2 years in jail, even if you were never actually convicted. So previously, this was a lot more lenient, and it's likely going to affect more applicants going forward. There's also financial self-sufficiency, where you need to prove that you can support yourself financially. And we're still waiting for specific details of this, but it's likely that they will want proof of income and savings thresholds. So the bottom line is that this proposal makes Portuguese citizenship harder to get in almost every way. It's not just a longer timeline anymore, but it's also stricter requirements across the board. And these are affecting multiple different residency pathways, not just the standard citizenship by residency. So to recap, what happens next? Well, the crucial factor here is the president's decision timeline. He has 8 days from October the 28th, so we're already a couple of days in, to make his decision. And so this is expected by approximately November 5th, next Wednesday, I believe. And there are two possible outcomes here. So first off, the president could choose to approve the proposal as it is right now, Then it will be signed into law, published in the Diario, and effective immediately on publication date. That's going to happen very quickly if it goes that way. There'll be no grandfathering and no modifications. And yeah, it could happen as early as next week. The second path is that the president refers the proposal to the Constitutional Court, and they typically take around 25 days to issue a ruling. So this makes the timeline longer, but it's still going to be uncertain. And the good thing is that the proposal may be diluted from its current quite extreme form. Possible outcomes include the Constitutional Court may declare certain parts unconstitutional and call for modifications. They could call to add grandfathering clauses for existing residents, and there could be various other changes to address constitutional concerns. So if the court does find it unconstitutional, then the president cannot promulgate it, and it must be returned to Parliament for further amendments. So currently, at this exact moment in time, nothing has legally changed. It's still the 5-year citizenship timeline. But the president's 8-day window means that we are going to know the immediate outcome very soon, as early as next week. If it goes to Constitutional Court, add another 25 days or more. But no matter what, this decision should absolutely influence your future planning now. Don't gamble on getting a more favourable outcome. I recommend just acting on the current information as it stands. If you're eligible to apply for citizenship, then don't wait another second and apply now if you can. But if you can't, if you're still waiting for those to reach those 5 years, then you have to plan for 10 years, I'm afraid, and be pleasantly surprised if things change. And if you're just starting to research Portugal as a potential destination to move to, you have to be honest with yourself now about whether or not a decade-long commitment aligns with your goals. Portugal is still an incredible country and a great place to live, but if quick EU citizenship is your main objective, then it is no longer the best pathway to go for. I'll keep you updated on the president's decision, and I'm going to make that comparison video on alternative citizenship routes coming soon. Thanks for watching, and whatever path you choose, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope it works out well for you. I'll see you in the next one.